something, and you know it's not true, and I'm not telling you to bash them over the head in that moment and say, you know what, you're wrong, and here's why, kabam. But there might be a statement, a moment, a time where you could say something risky for you that would be really beneficial for them and would honor your heart towards God. And that's what they have, this moment. I don't know how many times I've been sitting around with people, and they start talking about like evolution and how idiotic Christians are. And then there's that moment. Because I know all sorts of things about evolution. I've studied that till I'm blue in the face. Am I going to say something? Am I going to not out myself and avoid embarrassment? Because no matter what I say, they're going to think poorly of me, so maybe I'll just be quiet. Well, Daniel says, I'm not going to do that. My conscience is shattered. I'm going to do something about this. And so he goes and he's risking his life, and he says, please, don't make me eat that food because it is unclean and it will defile me. When we take a risk in the name of our God, do you think that God is going to do something to help us through that? What would you guys say? If we take a risk, do we do it alone? What is God going to do for us? Help. And actually, there's a term for taking a risk in the name of God. It starts with an F. It's everything that we base our religion on. That's right. Because we are taking a risk. Here's the risk. We haven't earned going to heaven. We don't deserve to go to heaven. God said, just trust me on this. I died for you. Okay? And we have to say, well, wait a minute, what if I try harder? Can I just make sure I go to heaven? And God's like, no. You just have to trust me on this. You have to trust me on this. You can't earn it. I did it. If you believe in me, then take that risk. And that's what Daniel does here. And whenever we take a risk in God's name, I promise you, God will do something. And so this is a call for boldness in our lives. Daniel is bold here. He's like, hey, I'm not going to defile myself. Please help me. And he's taken a risk in the name of his God. And I will tell you guys that the biggest thing that happens in Christianity that is horrible is that nobody ever takes risks. Who cares, right? I'm just going to live my comfy Christian life. God calls me to get up and go to another side of the world and share his word. No way, right? No risk. My friends talk about Christianity in negative terms and I don't share and love. No risk. No risk, no risk, no risk. And then life becomes about being comfortable, not about honoring God. Take a risk. I bring a lot of people to Christ. And people ask me how that happens sometimes. The way it happens is I take a risk. That's the way it happens. Kids come into my youth group, and I ask them questions like, do you know the Lord? Have you met Jesus? I ask them, why do you believe that there's no God if they don't believe in God? I take a risk with them, and God rewards it. Let's see what happens with Daniel, okay? 9 through 15. Someone read. Okay, read loud. 9 through 15.
Wow, okay. Now God has caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. So the officials told Daniel, I am afraid of my Lord the king, who is assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. Daniel then said to the guard, whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, and he had over. And next.
Wait. Where are we looking? I'm sorry here.
Yeah, this is first.
Sorry. Hananiah, that's right.
Mishael,
Azariah, and
That's it.
okay.
please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink, and compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days.
Okay, now, someone tell me what Daniel does here. What is Daniel's plan of action?
Baby king.
What?
Baby king.
Yeah, that's true, but what does he do in particular? I told you that Daniel took a risk, right, with saying this. What else does he do?
He takes a bigger risk.
He takes a bigger risk. Okay, this is a huge risk. Okay, what does he say?
He basically says that we'll eat this food that's not sacrificed, and they'll eat the other food. And if we're healthier, give everyone the non-sacrificed.
Yeah, he said, give us all, can we keep eating that food? That's what he says. He's like, hey, let's have a test, okay? So you're worried that we'll look thin. Now, why is the guy worried that they're going to look thinner and galanter? What's his ultimate fear? He says something about what he's afraid of. That's right. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar is not exactly a nice guy. Here's how it works. This culture was extremely barbaric, okay? Extremely barbaric. They had all sorts of rules, and the rules were like, if you steal this, drag them outside and skewer them on a stick. I mean, this is literally their rules. It would be like, you steal this one day, then take that person out and skewer them. Literally. And they had tons of rules like this. They were incredibly barbaric. Just barbaric people. Ungodly, just unmerciful, and Nebuchadnezzar is the worst of them, okay? Nebuchadnezzar, later on, he's like, everybody worships my God, and if you don't worship him, you go in the fire, right? Literally, that's how he talks about it. It's not like one of those things where it's like, if you don't worship my God, we'll put you in court, we'll, debate both sides, and we'll give you a heavy fine, That would be our culture. He's like, you die instantly, and that's what happened. Right? The people said, no, we're not willing to worship. They threw him right in, okay? This is a barbaric culture. And the guy's like, hey, listen, I would do what you asked me to do and just give you regular food. But if I do that, man, Nebuchadnezzar is going to chop off my head. So that's the initial response that Daniel gets is no. Right? That's what he says. Hey, can I have other food? No. No, I can't because I'll die. Don't you do this to me, Daniel, right? And then he says, test. Now, he says, test us in this. You give us the water and the bread and the vegetables, and 10 days later, if we look gaunt, fine, we'll do what you say, but if we look good, just keep giving us the good food, right? That's what he says. Now, how are they going to look better, just so I know? I mean, like, vegetables are good and all. That's right. So who's the test really about?
Faith.
The test is really about what God will do, not about what Daniel will do. So we talked about faith and how faith is kind of like, you guys remember the Niagara Falls illustration? Who remembers that?
I've been there.
Okay, we talked about there's a man and he's got a wheelbarrow. And he is a tightrope walker, and he tightrope walks people over he walks over on his wheelbarrow, Niagara Falls. And so he's got this line that goes right across Niagara Falls, and he says, hey, I'm going to go across, and I'm going to wheel this wheelbarrow right over. Do you guys think I can do it? And everybody says, yeah! And he goes right over the falls, right? No big deal. And he's skipping as he goes. He's having a great time. And then he's like, do you think I can do it again? And everybody goes, yeah! And he goes back, and this time he puts a huge 150-pound weight in the barrel, okay? He's just rolling this down, tightrope walking over Niagara Falls, and everybody just screams with applause. You're amazing! And he goes, do you think I'm amazing? And they're like, yes, we do! It's like, who believes I can do it a third time with even just a little bit less weight than last time? And everybody goes, yeah! It's like, okay, who's getting in the wheelbarrow? Right? Who's in? And all the applause dies, right? It was cool when you were using a weight. It was cool, we believe you can do it, but that's different than you believing when our lives are on the line. The exact opposite of what Daniel does here. He says, Yahweh will do it. Test me on this. We'll eat the veggies, and we'll look better because God will hear us. And I'm putting it all on the line for this. Go ahead, try it. Now, I want you to notice that God already has done something, right? Anybody notice what God did in those verses? Something very important. Right after the very beginning of that section. 9, verse 9.
God caused the official to show favor and compassion
Alright, God caused the official to show favor and compassion. And actually, the words there are hesed and varam, which is a description of God himself. Long-suffering and merciful. God caused these guys to be extremely merciful towards Daniel and his compadres, okay? Just like he is towards Daniel and his compadres. So the first thing that God does is right when Daniel goes, what happens? God's like, you act in faith, I'm going to back you up. You act in faith, I'm going to come and back you up. This guy is going to show you more mercy than normal, which is pretty good because I told you that Daniel put his life on the line, right? What happens if they don't like what they hear? They're the ones that were to appoint Daniel, right? They got the choice to appoint Daniel as one of the young men. You know what they could do? They literally could be like, you know what, your question is really obnoxious to us. We're going to go find some other noble young men, and you are dead. Okay? And instead, they say, well, I don't think that's a good idea. So this is a really good thing that happened here. God caused them to have compassion and mercy. God has got their back. God's got their back. Now, let's see what happens when this test occurs. So someone read 16 through 21. And you guys have a couple minutes and then we'll let you go. Oh, it's 10:13 now. Do you guys need to go downstairs? Are you okay? Okay. Okay. Because I think he said like 10:10. I'm still pretty sure he was. Okay. You got it? Go ahead.
What is it?
16 through 21.
Oh, so the guard took away their choice food and the wine.
No, 16 through 21, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, did I miss the verses that it worked? Oh, 15. Yeah, do 15 through 21. I'm sorry.
At the end of the
Wow.
10 days, they
I was obviously very tired when I did this. Okay. Your thing. Go ahead.
Okay. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better and nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wines they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. To these young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. Okay.
Yes.
At the end of the time set by the king to bring them in, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with him and found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them. He found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanted in his whole kingdom.
Alright, so this is really cool. Now, check this out. So part one is, does God go to bat for them? What happens? Do they look worse or better? Better. Okay, now, who would put down their steak for, like, some vegetables? Okay, let's just be, like, honest here. Like, I would really like do I go to Burger King and say, would you have a veggie plate?
Vegetable.
Well, this is a bunch of veggies, but we're talking about wheat, and then a set, like carrots and stuff.
Like the VeggieTales?
This would not be like wonderful things that you get at like Whole Foods. This would be like this would not be that great. Yes.
Is this story based on like VeggieTales?
No. You're correct. Thank you. All right. They go and they have this test though, and Daniel says, "Listen, I'd rather have bad food than have evil food." Right? That's what he says. I'd rather have bad food than evil food. And test us on this. If we get thinner, we'll do what you say. But if we get better, good thing, right? And the guy's like, well, I'll test you. And after 10 days, he's like, well, this seems to be working. So God totally delivers. I mean, totally delivers for them. And then it says, on top of that, God's just like, now you guys get wisdom. You guys get to learn the language. You guys are going to be brilliant. Now, he did all of that second part, because he loves them. It's not necessarily tied to what they did earlier with the test. He just loves them and he wants them to succeed. And we talked about at the beginning of the story that they're in this horrible situation. And you guys are going to be in places in your life where you're like, this is horrible. This is tough. This really stinks, God. Why did you put me here? And in that moment, now for Daniel, I mean, it doesn't get much more worse than half of the people I know are dead.